Asking your questions, getting your answers. This is your show. Here's your host, Adam Schrager.
Good morning and welcome to your show for Sunday, June 29th. We're going to be joined later in the program by the leaders of Colorado's oil and gas industry, but we wanted to start this election season with the first in our ballot initiative series. We're focusing on Amendment 46 this morning, otherwise known as the Colorado Civil Rights Initiative. And joining us to discuss it is Jessica Corry, who is with the Civil Rights Initiative, and Melissa Hart, who is with Coloradans for Equal Opportunity. Thank you both so much for being on your show.
Thank you.
Let's get right to it. Dan Omasta writes in, how will the Colorado Civil Rights Initiative impact the universities and colleges in our state? Jessica?
Well, I think we're going to see a positive impact. For so long, universities have been relying on race and gender preferences as a way to increase diversity or reach out to disadvantaged people. And this initiative will force them to be more creative. It'll force them to really develop strong programs that don't discriminate on the basis of race or gender for anybody. Right now, the University of Colorado has a wonderful program called the Pre-Collegiate Development Program. It's open to students of all races, and every program, including the admissions program at the University of Colorado or any Colorado universities, should be colorblind, and we're really excited about the prospect of moving toward that.
Melissa?
That's an interesting way to look at it, but it's wrong. The impact of this initiative on the University of Colorado and other universities in this state will be, I hope, ameliorated if it passes by efforts such as those that Ms. Corry describes to reach out to students who otherwise will be left behind. But in fact, eliminating any consideration of gender or race or national origin or ethnicity in consideration of college admissions is a terrible mistake that will have the effects here that it had in Michigan, which has been able to only through incredibly expensive and time-consuming efforts keep its admissions rates at a strong level, and in California, which has seen the lowest rates of minority admissions in 30 years.
We're going to get into that in a sec, but maybe I should have taken a step back. Jessica, describe what this is, and then Melissa, I'll have you say what you think this is. But what is this amendment?
Our initiative bans the consideration of race or gender, any individual's biological characteristics in those two categories, in government hiring, contracting, and education. So when your kid applies to college, you will know that her race or gender is not a factor in admissions.
Melissa, what's wrong with that?
Again, I think one of the things that's frustrating about Amendment 46 is the deception with which it's been put forward to the voters of Colorado. This is an initiative that came from California, financed by Ward Connerly, California millionaire who has also brought it to other states in the country. He describes it, and others describe it, as eliminating race preferences, but it eliminates much more than preferences. It eliminates programs that most people would not consider race preferences, programs designed to encourage recruiting and training, programs designed to encourage equal opportunity, under the guise of simply eliminating quotas or point systems. And that's why I want to mention here, although what we're talking about is Initiative Amendment 46, that I'm part of a group, Coloradans for Equal Opportunity, that has put forward a Colorado initiative, Initiative 82, that does eliminate quotas and point systems, but instead of leaving preferential treatment as this undefined and potentially very wide-reaching, much more far-reaching than people would think that it would be, tool, it eliminates quotas and point systems but leaves equal opportunity programs in place.
An initiative that's not yet on the ballot,
nope.
Hasn't qualified.
Nope, they were collecting signatures for it now, but it will be a Colorado alternative to this out-of-state cookie-cutter initiative.
Are you an out-of-state cookie-cutter initiative?
I have to take exception with what Professor Hart said. This is a homegrown initiative. For the last 8 years, I've been part of a very active citizen-led coalition to get something like this on the ballot, and we are excited about that. Now, as far as the allegation that this will destroy any program, that just simply isn't true. The only thing our initiative does is say, remove race and gender as a factor, or as giving race or gender any sort of weight. That's fair, and a recent Washington Post Wall Street Journal poll found that only 15% of Colorado voters are against this. This makes sense. We're a progressive state. We're committed to women's rights. We're the second state to give women the right to vote. We look at people based on who they are as people and not their skin color. Coloradans are ready for this.
Jessica, let me ask you this. Question came in from one of Professor Hart's colleagues at the University of Colorado at Boulder, Alexis Smith, who writes, in other states where the initiative has already passed, and Professor Hart mentioned this, the number of students of color in state institutions dramatically decreased. Why should students, particularly ethnic minority and women students, she writes, support this initiative?
That just simply isn't true. Since 2005, the University of California system, which is the largest system to benefit from the end of racial and gender preferences, has seen a 50%, or I'm sorry, close to 50%, 47% jump in the number of admissions for Black and Latino students. Compare that to the 11% increase in admissions for white and Asian students in California. There are a lot of statistics thrown out there, and what I would really encourage people to do, if they want to know the facts on this, is go to our website, coloradocir.org, or go directly to the University of California website where they have these statistics, the University of Michigan, or go to Washington. These are all 3 states where initiatives similar to ours have passed with overwhelming public support.
Melissa, this question comes from Joy Granger, and it gets to a point that Jessica just mentioned. She writes, why isn't there more of a public outcry and admonishment of public policies that allow people to be categorized by the color of their skin? At what point is it considered acceptable to classify people based on their race?
I think that's a really hard question, and I think the answer to it is that in a world where there was no discrimination, where in fact it was not a disadvantage to be African American or Hispanic in our society, then we could start talking about not also creating an equal playing field by going out and recruiting and providing opportunities for people who are constantly denied opportunities in our society. But we're not at that place yet. I think we all agree that it would be wonderful if we were. But in fact, the statistics that Ms. Corry mentions from the University of California, for example, are very deceptive. If you look at the California school system since the identical Proposition 209 was passed in 1996, it's true that minority applications have gone up. If you look at the top 2 schools, UCLA and Berkeley, minority admissions continue to drop precipitously. In 2006, the admissions at the University of California at Los Angeles were the lowest they had been in 30 years, with only 2% of entering students being African American. It is true that Black students are getting into other California schools, but the students at University of California at Los Angeles are losing the opportunity to learn in a diverse environment, and students of color are losing the opportunity to go to good schools, not because they're less qualified, not because they'd be worse students, but because Proposition 209 does what Amendment 46 would do, which is to, in a way that completely denies the social realities, create a blind eye to the disadvantages that come with race and gender, allowing you to consider all these other things, but not those disadvantages. And that is a terrible way to run a school system.
Jessica, I've got about a half minute left. I'm going to let you respond to that.
Well, let's just talk briefly about gender. We're sitting here today. We're proof that women have made it. Race and gender are no longer sufficient categories to determine advantage or disadvantage. How do we define race when 1 in 10 Colorado College students decides to not define by race? How do we define race when we have Barack Obama as a presidential candidate? America is too diverse to simply be put in these race boxes. They're stagnant. We have a class problem in this country. We have a situation where we have people who cannot make it because of their class, their economic disadvantage. That's where we need to be focusing, not using race as a lazy proxy for real outreach.
I'm going to have to wrap this up right now. We're going to be discussing this initiative as well as many more on October 6th at the University of Denver Gates Concert Hall. We're going to have a ballot initiative 101. For now, Jessica Corry, Professor Melissa Hart, thank you both so much. Hopefully we'll have you back on. We'll be right back.